أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله
اللهم لا تكثر لي من الدنيا فإنما قل وكفى خير مما كثر وقل ولا تقلل لي منها فأنسى.
من الفتى الكريم؟
عمر بن الخطاب.
I want you to imagine this scene. Imagine being in Masjid Nabawi, the Masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, and Umar al-Khattab is the Imam. This was a time in the Khilafah of Umar, after the Prophet had passed away, ﷺ, after Abu Bakr who passed away. And Umar al-Khattab is there in Masjid Nabawi for Salat al-Fajr.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
And what he would do actually is he would walk through the lines. And you know how the Imam always says, "Stow, straighten the lines." Umar would say that, but he would actually walk through the lines and straighten the lines. So until all the believers were just like an army. So Umar al-Khattab then begins the prayer, Allahu Akbar. And soon after he begins the prayer, a man jumps out from a pillar in the front of the masjid. His name was Abu Lu'lu' al-Majusi, and he had a dagger that had two heads in which he had soaked in poison for 1 month long. And he stabbed Umar al-Anhu. He stabbed him, some narrations say 2, some say 3 times, in his chest, in his shoulder, and the biggest injury was right beneath his navel, which he slit open. Umar al-Khattab was taken obviously by surprise, and what's amazing is his reaction. The first thing he did was he grabbed the hand of Abdurrahman ibn Auf, one of the senior Sahaba who was right behind him, and pulled him forward to lead the prayer. Now Abu Lu'lu', the murderer, then says he has to escape, and so he just jumps through the lines, and the lines were like solid. And he starts stabbing left and right, and he ended up stabbing 13 different companions, 7 of whom died on the spot. Finally, one Sahabi threw a cloak over Abu Lu'lu', and when he realized he's about to get captured, he actually took his own life and committed suicide. Now Abdullah ibn Umar, the son of Umar al-Khattab, he narrates what happens. He says, after the prayer was finished, now Abdurrahman ibn Auf, he led a short prayer. He says, أَقْبَلْنَا عَلَىٰ أَبِي لِنَحْمِلَهِ. We came to my father to carry him home. And he says that his injuries were flowing with blood. He says, when we saw the blood flowing from especially that lower injury, he says, I put my hand like this, I spread my fingers, and I tried to cover the wound to stop the blood from seeping out. And he says, my hand entered into the stomach of Umar. So he says, we put him down, I took off my turban, we tied up the injury tightly, and we carried him home. And he says, my father was completely unconscious. Now when they took him home and they laid him down, they tried to bring him back to consciousness. They were calling him, "O Umar, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, O leader of the commander of the faithful," and they're calling him, and he wouldn't wake up. Some narrations even say he only woke up when they said, "Amir al-Mu'mineen, as-salah, as-salah."
As-salatu khayrun minan nawm.
And the narration, Allah ibn Umar says, right before the sun was about to rise, my father awoke, and he says, he looked right and left. Now imagine the scene, people were crying. Umar's body is pulsating with pain, and he wakes up and he looks in a state of confusion, right and left. And you know what the first thing he says? Have the people prayed? And they tell him, Ya Mu'mineen, yes, they have prayed. They finished Salat al-Fajr. Then he says, all thanks and praise are to Allah. There is no place in Islam for the one who has left prayer. He looks to his son Abdullah, and he says, "Oh Abdullah, bring me water." And his son tells him, "Would you like to drink? Atashrab?" And he says, "No, I need to make wudu. My prayer was cut, I didn't finish my prayer." Now to give you an idea of the state of Umar, Like we said, his intestines were hanging out from his injury. Even later, a doctor brought him some milk, and he drank the milk, and it said that the milk literally poured out from his open wound. And when that happened, they knew he was going to die. And then he tells his son, "Aq'idni, stand me up." And his son tells him, you want to stand up when you're in this position? I mean, you have an excuse. And he says, "Come on, man, listen to me, stand me up. I don't want to pray when I'm lying down." And when they sat him up, and when they helped him get up, the narration says that his injury opened and his intestines came out a second time. And he let out this cry of pain, and they laid him back down, and they tied it tighter again, and he prayed lying down. Now after Umar satisfied his soul and his iman and completing Salat al-Fajr, then he asks the question that we would expect him to ask the first thing. He says, "Who killed me?" So they tell him, "The slave of Mughira." And he says, "You mean the fire worshipper Abu Lu'lu'?" They say, "Yes, it was Abu Lu'lu' al-Majusi, he was a non-Muslim." And you know what Umar says? And this gives you an idea of the importance of prayer, brothers and sisters. He says, "Thanks to Allah, that Allah has not made my death at the hands of a man who has even made one sajda to Allah, by virtue of just making one prostration to Allah, he can argue against me to Allah on the Day of Judgment." SubhanAllah. This is the level of importance and the standing of prayer in the life of a Muslim. Brothers and sisters, the first thing we will be asked about on the Day of Judgment is our salah. So my question to myself and to everyone else, do we guard our prayers? Umar ibn al-Khattab, he was in a state, he was about to die. And his main concern was, did the people pray? And after he was given comfort with the news that the people prayed, he made sure he prayed in a condition when he was about to die. Prayer, brothers and sisters, do never ever lose your prayer, no matter what position you're in.